I have a friend whose name is Emma McNeely, but I've always known him as the Pirate of El Cap. Arg. He's always saying arg and talking in pirate speak. And I think he's climbed El Cap like 100 times. But what makes Ammon special is sort of his piratey attitude. He's by any means possible, and he's gonna do it like, if he's gonna do a climb, it's gonna be gnarly, and if he's gonna do a base jump, he's gonna rage it. He comes at the world with so much energy and so little respect for any rules or what anyone else thinks of him. And Ammon showed up at my house one day in Moab, looking for my boyfriend. Ammon had 2 base jumping students in tow, and he says, "Arg, we're gonna go jump the electric chair." And Andy was stoked, of course. The electric chair is a base jumping exit, a jump, perched on the edge of the cliff overlooking the Colorado River. And in Moab, the Colorado has 2 really important sides. There's the side that has all the rock climbing on it, the potash side, and then there's the side that has all the base jumps on it, which is the Cane Creek side. And there's main roads down both sides of the river, but where town is, it splits off. So there's one point where the roads come together on the river, and you can see the other side of the river. It's like, it's 300 feet or something to the other side of the river, but to take your car all the way around, you have to go back through town and up to the next bridge. It's almost a 30-minute drive. So for electric chair, you have to jump off this cliff, fly under some power lines, cross the river, and you land on the far side of the river on the road. You have to have someone there ready to pick you up when that happens. So I told Ammon and Ammon's students and Andy that I would pick them up at the bottom of their jump. And I actually had a friend visiting, and I brought him with me. I said, "Hey, do you want to see some base jumping? Like, my friends are about to jump. I'm gonna wait on the other side of the river for them so I can pick them up when they land." He's like, "Yeah, for sure. Let me get my camera equipment all ready." And we drove out there, and I think he had his camera like on a tripod at the time. He's getting ready. He's all set up. I could see my friends at the top of the cliff. It's funny to look at people from the bottom of a base jump because they're just specks. And you can look at the ridgeline, and all of a sudden you'll see like a little bit of contrast of a person of this tiny speck up there, and they'll wave at you or whatever. And they did their standard monkey call. And I was like, okay, they're gonna go. And I saw the first jumper go. Great. It's nice fall, pitch, open. There's a really loud sound when people open. They fall for a minute and it's absolutely silent. And then you hear crack! And the sound of the parachute opening is super loud. It's almost like a gunshot echoing off the desert walls. So the first 2 people went, silence, crack, silence, crack. And I see the third person go, and he falls, and there's silence, crack. And everything looked okay for a second. I thought he was flying straight at us, but then I realized that he's aiming back at the cliff. His parachute's open like sideways backwards. And I just watched this little silhouette parachute open, hit the cliff, and then I never saw it again. It's just, this type of stuff can happen when you're a base jumper, even when you're watching base jumping, but there's something about, you never expect that it's going to be on the day that you go, or it's going to be that you're going to see it, it's going to be your friend. And gosh, I've seen people, it's called the cliff strike when you hit the wall like that. You base jump normally, and your canopy opens, and since you jump off the cliff, your canopy opens facing forward and you fly away. But if your canopy opens facing backwards, you're going to fly and hit the cliff again. And, usually you see someone hit the cliff and they'll kind of kick off it and back and then land at the bottom, or they'll kick off it and turn around. Oh my gosh. I didn't know which jumper it was. I didn't know it was Ammon at the time, but I saw that cliff strike and I was like, this is not happening. I was sure that person could not have survived, because all I saw was the figure hit the side of the cliff and just stop dead. And I knew that there was no way that he had enough time under canopy to be okay. So I'm sitting there shocked for a few seconds until I hear, "I lost my leg! I lost my leg!" I'm yelling back from the other side of the river, "You broke your leg again?" And Ammon yells back, "No, I lost my leg!" And I was like, he lost his leg. Ammon, I was like, he cannot mean that he lost his leg. I was like, he's got to be dramatizing. Maybe he means that he had just gotten over a leg injury. I thought maybe he had like, oh, I hurt my leg again. I lost it. But Ammon's like, "No, I actually lost my fucking leg!" And I didn't know what to do. I'm standing up here at my car. I have 2 of his students and my boyfriend's on my side of the river, and Ammon's way over there. I can barely describe to you how close and yet how far we were. And as I'm like sitting trying to process, I'm like, do I rush over there? Do I call 911? Do I go down the road so I have service so I can make a phone call? And I'm sitting trying to process what to do, and I hear my boyfriend from the lower bank, "Put a tourniquet on it! Put a tourniquet on!" I was not smiling at the time, but looking back, it was just like one of those like incredibly unbelievable situations. So I mean, we could almost see him. He was so close to the road. But from that point, I think it took us almost like 7 or 8 more hours to get Ammon back down to the road. We called our friends who lived on the opposite side of the river. My friend Brent Kane's a paramedic and a runner, and he ran from his house up to the top of the ridge to where Ammon was, stabilized him. I think he gave him pain meds, checked his tourniquet. Andy and I got back in our car with Ammon's students and drove all the way the half hour around, all the way over to the river. And we get out of the car, and Andy just busts out the door of the car and starts running up this talus slope to Ammon. I think by the time I was halfway up the talus slope, Andy was already there. So I reached the bottom of the climb, or I reached the bottom of the wall, and Ammon is kind of perched. There's a big talus slope, and there's a really flat cliff, and then the jump, and Ammon is like kind of almost like partway up the cliff. So it's climbing access. Andy and Brent both climbed up ridiculous ways. I'm sitting at the bottom, and I'm like at this point about 50 feet from Ammon, and I'm like, how the heck did they free solo that part? So I like walk down the trail a little bit and find access up. And I get to Ammon, and this man is calm, sitting there. He's got a couple of my friends around him. EMTs haven't arrived yet. Search and rescue doesn't arrive for like half an hour. And Ammon's entire... It was just like... The leg was still there. It was like someone had taken an eraser and just like erased part of the sketch under his knee if he was made out of pencil. It was just like... no connective tissue almost. Bones sticking out both angles. I think that the leg was being held on by a piece of skin like this big. I look at that stuff in the movies and I'm grossed out. I'm like, I don't want to watch this, but when it happens in reality, it's so gory that it doesn't even look real. Like I felt like I was looking at something out of The Walking Dead. It was like, there's no way. And Ammon was unbelievable too. I'll never look at Ammon McNeely the same way ever again. He truly is a pirate. I don't know if I know anyone as badass as Ammon. He was just calm. I think he may have asked me if I was okay at one point. I'm packing up, I'm getting his parachute off the rocks and packing it back into his bag, and we're trying to get it off of him because a lot of the time paramedics will cut your harness. And I'm packing this canopy into his bag, and I think I'm like a little bit in shock a tiny bit because I'm like putting it away and I'm just like watching myself get blood in my hands, not knowing what to think. And Ammon, the man with half of his leg missing, calls over to me. He's like, "Are you okay, Hayley?" I was like, "Are you okay?" "Of course I'm okay, Ammon. What the fuck? You're sitting there with half of your leg gone." We got to Ammon first, like way first, and we kind of stabilized him. Brent and then my friend Daniel Moore and Andy were really the heroes that day. Daniel Moore and Brent were both paramedics, so they had some idea what to do, and it made me realize that the Moab Monkeys, these are my people. This is my team. If something goes wrong, we're not depending on any outsiders to help us. In fact, if you wait for other outside help to rescue you, you're probably not going to get it in time in the desert. But I think that day we saved Ammon's foot. Ammon recovered. You know, he's walking, he's climbing again. He had great surgeons that were able to literally reattach his entire leg to his body. You know, and they said that if the monkeys hadn't been there so quick, I don't think they would have been able to save the leg. Ammon McNeely, the Pirate of El Cap, the most badass person I've ever met, probably. And definitely this is not happening. A big realization in base jumping, because I thought this is not happening that day, and that was just my first intro in extreme sports to this is not happening. Thanks, Ammon.